As you may know, it's my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. What you may not know is I am distilling all of that knowledge into one battle-tested book. If you'd like early access to that book, make sure to click the link below.
We try to make sure that everybody is in a job where the majority of their daily tasks give them energy. And because we move so fast and because everything changes so fast, maybe your job description doesn't change, but maybe your job did. And so we're highly aware of when we may get into a situation where maybe the tasks that take away your energy get a little bit too much. And then what we'll do is we'll take those tasks and that take away your energy, and we'll create a new job, and we'll hire somebody into that job who gets energy from those tasks. We think about it, we talk about it all the time, because you gotta be excited about getting out of bed in the morning.
Hey guys, Damian Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today, I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. Today, I have the blessing of being joined by Mark Jamieson. Now, Mark bought this company with 4 employees and has grown it to 70 and still growing. And what he learned along the way is there's predictable paths where you're going to hit a wall. He also learned that culture is the secret ingredient. And he shares how he niched not just one way, but 3 different ways to carve out his own special way to grow. And lastly, he shares how they were super early into AI and are already helping their customers drive transformation through AI. Don't miss out on my conversation with Mark today. You came into this business a little different than the typical founder. Tell me how you came to be president and CEO of 2W.
Sure. So we've been in 2W for 12 years now. And really, it was kind of the culmination of a bunch of drunken Thanksgiving conversations between my brother and I when hey, we need to buy a business. We should buy a business, And so I found myself around that time. The hard part about acquiring a business is finding the opportunity to do the due diligence. And so I started that process, and I stumbled across 2W, and it was essentially it was an ERP consulting house. There were 4 employees and a bunch of 1099, like a lot of those consulting houses were, then. And then we did the due diligence. We met the founders, Bill and Diana. We got along real well. I understood that business. I'm not from manufacturing, but I do understand enterprise software. And it was an organization that was a little underserved in the sales and marketing area, but it had a great word of mouth. And so we ended up buying it in September of 2012.
Okay.
And it's been a journey. It's been a hell of a journey ever since.
Yeah. So let's kind of try to book in. You started, it was 4 employees.
And then so when we bought the company, it was 4 employees, and there was probably about 10 or 11 1099 consultants. And then shortly, I don't know, maybe a year later, we made the decision that we were going to make everybody an employee. And I think you get better quality control when you write somebody a check every other week.
Yeah.
As opposed to, 1099 folks are great, and it works well when, business goes down, you don't have to pay them, business goes up, they're all right there. It does erode into your profitability to some degree because, you don't get that economy of scale. But also I think a lot of times it's, when things are good, they're all part of the team. And when things go rugged, they're like, hey, I'm just an independent contractor. So
yeah,
we made the decision relatively early on that we were going to make that turn and hire our people. And now we're about 70 strong. We have most everybody that you see with 2W works for 2W. We've got a couple of specialty folks that, handle the kind of the one-off stuff that may be independent contractors. But when we do that, typically they are employees of other companies. So a very similar structure to what we have, and I typically have a relationship with their top officers. So again, it's that quality control.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about that beginning. A couple things that struck me. One is you had independent contractors, and you buy the business, and then you make them employees. And I think everybody fears the opposite: is that you'll make them independent contractors, or you'll cut slash all these jobs.
So it's interesting. We have not downsized. So we've made a bunch of acquisitions along the way as well. And we have not downsized, through attrition or people decide, hey, that's not for me. But it's always been kind of in the other direction. And so there may be some administrative stuff that's overlap or whatever, but if you're growing your business, you can't get enough smart people.
Yes.
And when we bought 2W and we decided to make the employee turn, there were some folks who didn't come with us. There were some folks who we kept on and as 1099s, but as we grew and we hired around them, they eventually get to where you need them to be. I think my toughest sell was the guy who is now our chief technology officer. He was kind of the last holdout, and but I convinced him to be an employee. And he said to me, he said, I think I forgot how I haven't been an employee since like 98 or something, right? And so I think he was the last guy to jump on board from that original regime.
This episode is brought to you by Cerbosity. I started Cerbosity because I was an MSP that lost data because I thought backup success meant I could recover. And boy, was I wrong. If you've ever been there or anywhere close, you know how much your stomach turns over the thought of not being able to recover any version of the data for your client. Now, naively, I set off to build a better mousetrap and build a better backup product until finally I realized it's all about the people and the process. So you have a choice to make. Do nothing and bury your head in the sand, or level up your processes. Now you can do that by either hiring Cerbosity, where we'll take all the workload of managing backups off of your plate and test your backups daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. Or you can keep the tech stack you have in place, your existing backup and DR provider, and steal my 18 years of knowledge and download that process and add that to your operational maturity today. I know you're the new owner, I'm not speaking to the former ones, but how was, you grew the company, you invested in the company. I know there's a lot of people that think, even though you're not backed by private equity, right? Even though you're doing this in your own way, a lot of people think, man, they're just going to like cut costs and ride it out or something. But clearly you came into this with a different mindset.
Oh yeah. So we bought the company to grow it, and we bought the company with the mind that if we could carve out our niche, we would make acquisitions when they became available. We've been real opportunistic about that, but we are. When we came in, it was all pro growth. Look, I'm a sales guy by trade, and so it was all about how do we get more clients, how do we bring more value, how do we grow the business. And I was real fortunate because the founder of the company stayed with us. And she actually did a really brilliant thing. She sold me all the business headaches, and then she got to do what she likes to do. And when I say founder, I mean she started 2W. The original genesis of the company started back in the early 90s, and so she's still with the company today. She's got a ton of energy. She'll run me into the ground. But she's got her account base. She's got her clients. Her clients love her. In fact, she just got a really nice note from one of her long-term clients. So I think she really enjoys what she's doing, and she's been good counsel too. Especially early on. Because she knew obviously more about this business. She forgot more about this business than I'll ever know. And so it was good. It was good. It was a good relationship. It continues to be a good relationship. And I'm real fortunate, especially in the beginning, that I was able to have that kind of relationship with the former owner.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about something else that's different or unusual around. People talk about standardization. Usually, I think that means let's get everybody on the same firewall or other things like that. Tell me what you guys have done to drive this standardization or uniformity.
Yeah, I tell you, it took us a while to get here. This was not like a brilliant idea we had out of the chute. But we've standardized on essentially we have two partners, and it's Epicor is our ERP, and Microsoft is our technology stack. And so we hold 5 designations from Microsoft. We're a platinum Epicor partner. In fact, we were just named the Epicor Global Partner of the Year a
Congratulations.
few months ago. And it's but being able to do that allows you then to focus on that, and then your people only need to know those technology stacks. Now, when you take on new clients, especially in our infrastructure business, yeah, you do have to live with some original, installations. But what we do is we're real upfront about it. Look, we're not going to force you down this path, but when it's time to replace, we're going to replace you with this. And so for firewalls, it's SonicWall. All the security, all the collaboration tools are all Microsoft. And then again, our ERP system is Epicor. And then we have and then when it comes to some of our other disaster recovery stuff, we've standardized on a product or a company called Axient. And we do mostly, that's a lot of our on-prem stuff. We do a lot of our collaboration 365 SharePoint backup through them, but that's it. And and so I find that we're a better partner to them because that's our focus. We understand that stack better, and I think we're just servicing our clients better. And as I talk to some of these guys, like at IT Nation, it blows my mind how many different pieces and parts that everybody's got to manage to.
Yeah. So if you would back up, I think you also niche in your client base, right? I think most people don't know too much about ERP, let alone Epicor. So tell us why and how that niche.
Yeah. So almost all of our clients are manufacturing.
Okay.
Epicor has one of their bigger ERP offerings is a manufacturing focused ERP. So therefore, probably 95% of our clients are manufacturers. Now we are starting a new initiative that I'm pretty excited about. We're picking up Profit 21, which is the distribution part of their Epicor's ERP system. So we are branching into a new vertical. That'll be a challenge. I think it's not a huge putt between manufacturing and distribution. So, but we've got to help. How do we bring value to that vertical? But almost all of our clients are manufacturers. So, and what's really interesting about it is, look, doing technology in a manufacturing environment is exceedingly hard. It's either the building's either too old or too cold or too dusty or too hot. There are language barriers many times between the shop floor and the front office. There may be, manufacturing facilities may be distributed across a geographic area, and there's always budget challenges. Most manufacturers are laggards in the technology adoption curve. They would rather spend, they'll spend $8 million on a plasma cutter, but they won't spend $8 on a server. So we end up understanding that business, learning how to work within the parameters of that business, and understanding the folks who run manufacturing plants. And I think that's also that focus has helped us, especially in the Microsoft stack, in that a lot of Microsoft partners are kind of a mile wide and an inch deep, and we're just the opposite. And the fact that we have this industrial vertical I think plays pretty well, and they like what we're doing, and we're able to bring value not only to our partners but to our clients as well.
So here's what's puzzling to me. You chose the, manufacturing, too hot, too cold, dusty, all those sort of things. And manufacturing, which is typically a laggard, yet in your standardization, you not only pick just a few partners, but you basically said, I'm going to get rid of on-prem.
Yeah. So we made a decision back in 2015. I actually went to a Microsoft seminar where they were talking about this new thing, compute in the cloud, Azure. Mm-hmm. And so I got out of that thing. I called the fellow who's now our CTO, and I said, hey, I think we ought to do this. So we ought to think about going there. And he basically sent me his plan because he was thinking the exact same thing. And then he went out to Redmond and worked with Microsoft on the best way to put Epicor in an Azure environment. And then when we started going down that path, and so what we did was every time somebody needed a new server, we would say, okay, here's a quote for Azure and here's a quote for server. And almost everybody picked the server.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, we got more and more people started picking the Azure instances, and then we started moving their entire networks to Azure, all their infrastructure. We now are standing up manufacturing facilities that have no on-prem hardware, with the exception of switches, firewalls, and then whatever device everybody wants to use to interface with the data. It was a long haul. I actually don't think we've hit the tipping point yet. But we are doing a lot of business. We are a tier one cloud services provider now for Microsoft. We're a managed partner. But it was that focus. It was that, hey, look, here's a better way to do this. And but I think eventually, throughout that first kind of 5 years ish, we started to see some of that stuff catch, and then I think certainly COVID exposed a bunch of really bad networks as they put people home. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to get our big CAD files up and down into people's houses where the engineers now work? And so we were forced in that time to also get some of this remote cloud technology moving, and it's worked really, really well for us. And more importantly, I think it's a huge value for our clients.
Mm. So give me a little of the details behind there, because I know most people would say, oh, let's do cloud. But when most people, even if they were smart enough to quote, let's say Azure along with a server, people would still pick the server. And yeah. I also know nothing about ERP, but just enough to know that if you just grab some software and throw it in the cloud, especially what was on-prem, and kind of lift and shift, usually that's cost prohibitive.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal because, if you know anything about a SQL database, you know that the SQL will take every ounce of compute that you'll throw at it. And when you put it in a cloud environment, it's infinite amount of compute, right? And so that was part of our secret sauce, as we figured out a way to do that where we could have, because then if you dial it down, then your user experience is awful. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to come up with a method where we made it affordable, and the user experience was stellar. And so people tell me this all the time. They say, well, the cloud is too expensive. And and my response is always, well, if the cloud is too expensive, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's not. I think the biggest mistake that people make is it's not an analog. You don't stand up the exact server that you have on-prem in an Azure environment, because it will be expensive. Mm-hmm. But you need to be able to dial in exactly what the compute needs for the application that you're putting in the cloud. Because the days of, it used to be you'd drop in a big old server with a whole bunch of cores and a lot of RAM and, a couple of NIC cards, and and then you just throw stuff on there and you just let it go. Well, you can't do that in an Azure environment. It's much more nuanced and it's much more exacting. But if you do it right and you focus on what you need to accomplish, what you find is that it is more cost effective, it is more flexible, and then you kind of get out of that lather, rinse, repeat hardware replacement cycle that where you got to plunk down a 40 to 50K every 3 to 4 years.
So I'm curious, was it that you guys were able to make this comparable or maybe less expensive once you re-architected things? Or was
Yeah,
it
and that was the whole idea, right? Because nobody's hey, there aren't a whole lot of manufacturers that buy technology because it's cool. There are some, but they're not enough
Yeah.
to build a business on. And so it's got to have a good business argument to it, reliability, being able to have a good disaster recovery plan associated with it. I mean, it is our Azure instances are so reliable, and the ability to build that redundancy in for what is basically I mean, if you were our out of the box Azure instance, if you were to replicate that on-prem with on-prem hardware, and the fault tolerance and all that stuff would literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And but we're able to build them as resilient as they need to be, but out of the box they're pretty darn resilient, and we have not seen a huge outage really ever. I mean, there's been a couple, but not, now that I said that, I've just jinxed it. But there is but it's been very, very reliable, and it has a lot less noise. And so it just works better, and so I think there's a lot of we've opened a lot of eyes in kind of this path that we've taken as far as standing up virtual architecture.
Yeah. What do you mean by less noise?
It works. It just there's no you don't have to screw with it as much. And I think people appreciate that, right? I mean, look, one of the things that I learned early on doing this is people just want their shit to work.
Yeah.
They just want it to go, right? They want to come in, they want to push the button, they want to do their jobs, they want to push the button, and they want to go home. Now, there's some weirdos like us who like to mess with the technology, and certainly there's some folks out there, but the majority of human beings, they just want their technology to work. And when it doesn't work, it's highly frustrating. And so our entire focus for the last probably 10 years is how do we create, and I didn't make this up. I actually had a client tell me this. Look, I don't want our network to make any noise. I just don't want to deal with it. And when we create noiseless environments, it's less expensive for us to service, and it's more economical for the client because they're starting to get more value for their technology. And we find we can do that in a cloud environment far easier than we can with physical on-prem hardware.
Yeah, when you bring that full circle and you realize the cleaning lady didn't unplug the server every night, or right, there's just a lot less noise.
No joke. Last night, our cleaning people kicked the TV off the stand in the one of our conference rooms, and like it was smashed.
Oh wow!
And we walked into that, and I don't know. I think they ran like 10-year-olds who put a baseball through the neighbor's window. But yeah, see that. I mean, that's what happens with on-prem stuff. And you don't have any of that. You don't have to security. Security is all that physical security that you've got to go through when you're trying to get CMMC or ITAR or NIST or whatever your regulatory requirements are. It's a non-factor because you don't have to put a lock on it. You don't have to create, air-gapped, man traps in there or anything else. You just stick in the cloud, and 90% of your security stuff just is on.
So it seems to me that you have what some people do, which is a niche in terms of a vertical, just manufacturing.
Yep.
And then you have kind of layered on your top two partners with ERP from Epicor and Cloud Azure from Microsoft, maybe as like what I would call a second niche. And then it's almost like a third niche, wherein you also have taken that and said, we're just going to be all in on cloud. And how much of that kind of layering from first, second to third layer there, do you think has been responsible for your growth and your ability to handle growth?
I think it's been huge because this enables us to do this. This enables us to run with less people. Now they have to be better trained. So we are very, very big in making sure that all of our people get certified. We give them time to study. We give them we pay for their tests. I mean, so you have to be able to do that. But I think it's been huge for us because I can spin up a server in 20 minutes. Right? We've had clients where we're responsible for their ERP system, but not their infrastructure, where they've had catastrophic data failure, either through a lockware attack or hard drive failure or server failure or whatever it happens to be, weather, that kind of stuff. And many times the only surviving data is the Epicor data that we're responsible for. We've been able to spin up entire nationwide networks within a weekend to get people back into production when they've had a kind of a pretty onerous lockware event. And it doesn't happen all that much, but when we get that call, we do have a process for it. And we will create a complete virtual network for somebody out of the blue and take whatever surviving data they may have and make sure that we can put it into place.
What do you attribute to your growth, right? Most MSPs want to be where you are, and to have gone from 4 to, let's say, 70 in 12 years, it's a good pace.
I'm really, really fortunate. I work with a lot of really, really smart people. Mm-hmm. And that's mission one. Because if you don't have smart people, forget about it, right? People that are dedicated, focused to what you're trying to accomplish. We have a very, almost to a person, our teammates are client focused, right? And it's all about bringing value to the client. But I think it's all of that, right? It's the focus. It's the willing to commit. Look, if you're going to go into something, you can't halfway it. You got to go all in. Mm-hmm. And going all in on Epicor, going all in on what they're trying to accomplish, buying off on their direction, buying off on Microsoft's direction, and then making sure that everybody is skilled up appropriately, and you're taking the client's best interest at heart is really the key to it. And because the best part is when someone leaves, like a client will leave an organization and then they'll take you with them, right? And that happens a lot, which is just a testament to, I think, the value that we're bringing to these companies.
How are you intentional about that culture with your team?
Well, we spend a lot of time on it. I mean, a lot of time. We talk about it. We talk about it as a leadership group. We talk about it in at the manager level. We talk about it with each other. We have a meeting every Friday at noon for everybody, the all hands meeting. And it's, we do stuff. We'll handle. We'll go through maybe announcements or some little bit of training, or, hey, here's what's new, or here's what's coming. We have the new people introduce themselves to everybody, and then at the end of the meeting, we recognize our colleagues for jobs well done, and we call it ringing the bell. And where it stems from is we were in a meeting, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or whatever, kind of a management planning meeting, and somebody said, hey, we don't recognize our successes. We're so busy, we do it. Oh, okay, that's done. And then we go to the next one. Yeah. And somebody said, we don't recognize it. We don't ring the bell. So I went out and I bought a big bell and I put it on my desk, and we literally ring the bell for our people. And it's really fun because we'll recognize birthdays, we'll recognize anniversary dates. And then we'll kind of I'll maybe recognize somebody, ring the bell for somebody for, job well done. And then we'll throw it out to everybody else. And sometimes that that recognition time of our meeting will go on for like 10 or 15 minutes. And it's just people who are appreciative of the efforts of their colleagues. And they express it in a public thing. And that's just one thing, right? It's kind of cool. It's a highlight of my week. But we work very, very hard on who we are, what we do. We treat people with respect. We don't tolerate people who don't treat their teammates with respect. And to the point where the organization kind of takes care of that on their own. Like, dude, we don't do that here, right? And then, we've got about half of our employees work here at our corporate HQ in Wisconsin, and the rest are kind of scattered all over actually all over the world. We have somebody in France now. But we're super conscious about it, and we talk about it. We talk about when you're new. It's an ongoing process, and we work real hard. Just one more thing about that. We work really, really hard to make sure. Look, there's parts of your job that give you energy. And then there's parts of your job that take your energy away. And that's why they call it work, right? It's not fun, it's work. And so, but what we try to do is we try to make sure that everybody is in a job where the majority of their daily tasks give them energy. And if and because we move so fast and because everything changes so fast, maybe your job description doesn't change, but maybe your job did. And so we're highly aware of when we may get into a situation where maybe the tasks that take away your energy get a little bit too much. And then what we'll do is we'll take those tasks that take away your energy, and we'll create a new job, and we'll hire somebody into that job who gets energy from those tasks. And we've got a couple of tools that we utilize for that. But we think about it and we talk about it all the time because, you gotta be excited about getting out of bed in the morning because it's work. You do it every day.
Yeah. How do you recognize? Right, I'm a big believer in that, and in my team, we've had people give up things and say, "Hey, let's throw them out there." Like maybe we have somebody that we can hire, and we've had other times where it's just like the thing that I loathe, you enjoy, and vice versa. So we've done that, but I'm curious, how do you figure out what those tasks are?
Well, the first thing we do when people start to struggle, right? So in a traditional business setting, when people start to struggle, they go on a plan, right? Which is really the euphemism of get your resume together, pal, because you're going to be out the door in 6 weeks. We do the opposite. What we do is we surround them with support. And because we hired them for a reason, they came to work here for a reason. And if they're struggling, we surround them with support to try to figure that out. We use a tool called Cultural Index, which actually takes the traits. They've been tremendous for us. It basically takes the traits that you were wired with since you were like 12, and it mirrors those to your job behaviors. And so we do that when you first start, because we want to make sure, like, we wouldn't want to, if we had a highly detail-oriented job, we wouldn't want to hire somebody who was not detail-oriented, for example, right?
Right.
And then we take their job behaviors and we mirror them up, and we make sure that their job behaviors are close to what their inherent traits are. And then we take a picture about once a year, or if we have somebody who's struggling, we'll take a picture then, right? And then we'll work through it, and we'll help people. We'll help people get over that hump of, whatever they're struggling with. And I think that sends a really nice message, not just to those people, but to everybody else. Look, we all have ebbs and flows in our lives, and So if I struggle at work, they're just going to shoot me in the head and toss me out back. That's what an awful situation that is, right?
Right.
So we just don't do that here. Um, and then I will say this, but there are some times where we can't give that person what they want professionally. They've outgrown the company. There's not another path for them to go. And in those cases, we graduate them and we call them alumni. And when you're alumni, think about it. When you're alumni of a place, you think fondly of it. You recommend people go there.
Mm-hmm.
You still have friends there. You still have friends that used to be there who are also alumni. And we literally, on the all hands meetings, we literally graduate people. And we say, hey, you're graduating. We wish you all the best of luck. And we celebrate the time that they were here. And we celebrate their future. And I think that's I think trying to create alumni when they leave and surrounding people with support where they're here, that just all ends up in that, people are growing every day. That just feeds into that culture of this is a positive, pretty cool place to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the analogy of like when you struggle, we don't just take you out and shoot you in the head and get another, right? Because I think we all understand people are not commodities, but the traditional way of dealing with it is it's kind of, you're on a plan, do the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the nuance of understanding that maybe you're detail oriented, maybe you're technical, maybe you're those things, but there's things as the company's grown that have crept in that, take your energy instead of give you energy.
That's happened. People, their jobs have changed ever so slightly over a period of time to a point where they're doing things that are taking away their energy, and that's how people get burned out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our job as leaders to be aware of that and recognize that and make sure that we have that conversation going on. I tell people, I say, look, if you want to go get another job, you don't have to be a secret agent man around it. You just need to tell us that you're not happy. Let's figure out why you're not happy. And if you got to go get another job, hell, I'll be your reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a far different level of transparency.
Yeah, 100%.
So you use this cultural index tool to help you understand that individual. Is that right?
Yep.
And then how do you map that to, okay, I'm detail oriented or I like this or that, but then how do you understand, like, now I'm doing all these things and my original job description was this, and how do you figure out when maybe what's taking energy and what's giving me energy?
So that's where we start, right? So we start with that and we look at job behaviors. And if the job behaviors get outside of what we're trying to, if it's not a match, right? That gives us a jumping off point to start talking about it. We can start talking about the job. We can start talking about what parts of the job, what happened there. And it's the first place we go when somebody's struggling. We go right to their traits pattern. And then we look at, if we haven't had a good job behavior pattern, a recent one, we'll have them do it again. And then it gives us the ability to go through and figure out, so for example, right? So you just take your basic frontline IT tech. So a lot of guys in IT, they're not necessarily super social.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have somebody who's not super social, and all of a sudden they found themselves worked into a situation where they're on the phone a lot with clients, that may take away their energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to go in and we need to figure out what's going on with that, right? Detail orientation, or if they're being forced to be, to make their own decisions in the heat of battle, or their own decisions in what they're trying to do, and maybe they're not wired that way. That can exhaust you if you're not, if that's not your thing. Like, so for example, I'm not super detail oriented, and if I can be detail oriented for a short period of time,
mm-hmm.
but if I'm detail oriented for an extended period of time, it exhausts me.
Right.
If I had a job that was all detail, I would not last there more than 6 months.
Right. Right. It's funny you mention that because as leaders, we should try to understand our team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all say that. But if you don't understand that, your heart's in the right place and you want to do it and you want to help the team and you haven't given up, but we're now in a spot where it could be as simple as, like you said, maybe you're not detail oriented, so being in it long term, or maybe talking to people all day long, whatever it is taking your energy. And I think it's too often we lose that nuance. We go, oh man, this guy used to be a hard worker and be fired up, and now he's lost his, we say stuff like they lost their drive or passion or fire in their belly.
Yeah. Why did that happen? I mean, there was something has occurred, and usually it's not an event.
Mm-hmm.
It's a series of actions over time. And so we spend a lot of time as a management group talking about that stuff, making sure that we have the right people in the right jobs, making sure that, the term I use is, we really want this to be the job you always wish you had. And I mean it. And it's and we spend a lot of time talking about it, making sure that people are fulfilled, making sure that they're growing professionally in the area that they want to grow, giving them the opportunities to do that. And what's been really nice too is, because of our growth, there's been a lot of opportunities to grow. Right. I mean, if this was a static business, we wouldn't have that luxury that we have now, to challenge people and to get them moving forward.
How do they react when they first come to the organization and you start using language like, does this give you energy or take energy? Right. That's unusual.
People, it's interesting. It's so when you start here, and this is something that just happened. I don't know how this happened, but so when you start at 2W, the announcement goes out, right? I'd like to welcome, so-and-so, he's going to be this person, and, and he's going to start on Tuesday, and he's going to be based here, please join me in welcoming, right? And all of a sudden, there'll be 45 emails from the team going, hey, welcome aboard, welcome aboard, welcome aboard. And it was funny because we just started this one fellow not too long ago, and he said it was wild. He goes, I walked in and I had 50 emails my first day, and I went, oh my God, 50 emails. And they were all, hey, glad you're here, welcome aboard,
Yeah.
And I think it starts there. Right? And then everybody is super helpful. We try to minimize the territorial nature of things, right? And so what we find is everybody's really helpful. Everybody's more than willing to answer questions, and it's just an attitude and a mindset, really. And I'd like to say it's all because of brilliant leadership, but a lot of it is, hey, I I think I'm kind of lucky too.
Yeah. Yeah. You may be able to attribute it to your leadership team if you don't take the credit yourself, right? You probably have an amazing team.
Those guys, yeah, they all do a good job. Our HR director, she says we have a culture of we. Is how she puts it, and I think it's pretty spot on.
So I imagine there's a lot that goes on in the transition of an organization from 4 to 70.
Oh yeah.
So when you look back, were there certain maybe more predictable that you can see in reverse, where there are hurdles you're going to hit at a certain scale or levels that you had to overcome to reach the next level?
Yeah, it was, there is, and it's, and you hear about it, you read, your business books or whatever, you hit this certain plateau, or whatever, right? And so, I found that the biggest challenge was we had scaled the organization for a certain level, and our processes were designed around that level. And then when you blow past that, you really don't have the opportunity to go back and change your processes, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're living with these really super inefficient processes for a almost until the pain becomes too great that you're like, oh hell, we got to change this,
Yeah.
right? So it's a so that's a piece. I think hiring people, when the reason we use this cultural index product is we were experiencing a ton of turnover as we were changing and we were growing. We couldn't figure out why.
Mm.
And so I networked into this particular tool, and our consultant has been very, very helpful helping us to do. But that was really the change between high turnover, struggling, growth, painful processes, and not, was when we implemented that and we bought into that situation.
Where was that in your journey? Okay.
20 just before COVID, so it's 2019, I think. The whole world is post and pre-COVID, right? So
yeah. About how many folks do you think you had? I'm just kind of curious when you were hitting that wall from a scale perspective.
We were mid-teens.
Okay.
20, something like that, probably.
So somewhere on the way to 20 is when you really are starting to hit this turnover.
Something on the way to 20 people, probably 25 people, something like that.
Gotcha. And that was key, was understanding the people better, figuring out how to build a process. And then if I understood what you said, adopting. I know it's small, but like there's lots of people that buy tools.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it becomes, when you start growing, I mean, our hockey stick growth really came in over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's, there's stuff you don't even think about, like our laptop replacement. It's like, okay, these things are 4 years old. Well, I just bought 20 laptops for these new people, and I got to buy 20 more for the people who, like, just stuff like that. You just don't, you don't equate for until it's staring in front of you, and then you're like, holy smokes. I think I got to get a plaque or something. I bought all these laptops and these tools and keyboards and mouse and stuff like that for internal use.
Yeah. I want to switch gears, Mark. What do you feel like has been the biggest lesson you've learned over the years about building this business?
I think it's two things really. It's people, right? People matter. People, it makes the difference, and it's not revolutionary, and it wasn't like something I discovered, like hit me like a bolt of lightning or whatever. But it just super rings true that this is us. We're a people business.
Mm-hmm.
I joke that my next business is going to be inventory based, but it's a people business because we have clients, and those clients are people. And those people run businesses of their own, and they have the same challenges that we do, and they're trying to be profitable, and they're trying to make sure that their technology works, and they got to watch their money and all that other stuff. And so I think it's really our ability to have good people has really resonated. And again, I think that there was kind of that pre and post where you had a lot of turnover and a lot of angst, and then what was moving forward. And I think the other thing is simplicity. So one of the dangers that we have in the technology business is to make it really complicated.
Oh yeah.
Because we like complicated, right? So how our clients just want their shit to work. Well, we like it when it doesn't work, because then we get to get in there and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we can make that. We tend to speak in acronyms and long words and longer sentences, and we have this language all of our own. And I think the challenge is, and we work on this. This is one of our tenets, actually, is technology shouldn't make your head hurt. It really is. You have to speak simply and plainly, and so that the clients understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, making it simple to that, making it simple so they can understand it in shorter words and shorter sentences. And and directly and plainly. And I think really, I think the combination of those two things makes a big difference here and makes a big difference to our clients.
Mm. If there was one thing you could do over or do differently, what would that be?
I think I would have been a little more aggressive. I think I would have made some decisions faster, especially early on. You're tentative because you don't really know,
Yeah.
and you're trying to figure it out. So I think that I think that I think that I would have made decisions faster, and I probably would have leaned into some stuff a little quicker. But to be honest, this journey, it's kind of like that Frank Sinatra song. I mean, there might be some regrets, but they're really not worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've made it to where few MSPs do. Yeah, growing, happy employees, happy customers, 70 employees. What's your biggest challenge now?
Finding people.
Mm.
Finding people. We'd beat 100 people if I could find them.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. It's there is so much opportunity for us. And we can't take advantage of all of it because we just can't find the people. Because what's funny is unfortunately what's happened is we have this attitude and this culture here, but a lot of people have been sort of scarred from past jobs and they don't understand what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And so they're not good fits, right? And so finding the people with the skill sets that want to accomplish what we're accomplishing has probably been the challenge, is probably the biggest challenge right now. That and answering all my email.
Yeah, when will that ever be a thing, right? Is that part of what drove you to hire remotely, or was that just kind of a side effect of COVID, or
No, we've always had people scattered around. We hire, we tend to hire the skilled people wherever they stand.
Okay.
Right. We have some groups that are here on purpose so we can have, on-site collaboration or whatever, but the highly skilled folks, a lot of the Epicor consultants and Epicor people, we hire wherever they happen to live.
Mm. Well, given all the change in the industry, I mean, we haven't covered M&A, we haven't covered all the blinky lights and all the new trends. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I tell you, there's a couple things. One is I'm really kind of jacked up about some of the new initiatives we have. This new movement into the distribution space, I'm very excited about. We have just introduced an AI product that actually we developed for ourselves. We've been working on it. We started about 2 years ago, and it's because we do some ISV work for Microsoft, and so we get access to some of their early release stuff. And so we were able to get access to some of the cognitive services. This was just before ChatGPT even came out. And so we've been working with it, and we have implemented it internally, and it has revolutionized the way that we do business. We have it integrated into ConnectWise. It reads every ticket. It gives us feedback on those tickets. It routes it to sometimes, depending on if it's super obvious. It will respond back to clients' questions. We use it internally for meeting notes, to create rough drafts of scopes of work. We have a language model that we've trained to our business. And we have now we've started to offer it to our clients. And that and that ability to do that is pretty neat. I equate it just like when we started doing, here's your server quote, here's your Azure quote. And only I think it's going to move a lot faster. But again, there's also this big question mark as to what do I use it for, right? Like, I know I need to do AI, but I don't know what I need to do it with or for or to. And so the ability to take that knowledge that we have and introduce our clients to it and to show them some use cases. I mean, we're doing some pretty neat things just internally. In fact, there's just a LinkedIn post that we put out, but we took our billing process. At first it was 3 days. Now we took it to 4 hours, and now it's 20 minutes.
Wow.
Utilizing our product called Resolve IQ. The reason we call it Resolve IQ is because that's what it told us its name was. So being able to offer that to our clients, to bring that to the table, and to be able to show them how they can harness the power of that either operationally or just for analytics purposes has been it's starting to become a really cool conversation that we're having with our clients.
I'm curious, is that a custom development type of project, or is that like a subscription service that's, hey?
It's a little both. So we did so what we did was we created some modules. So there's some modules that that are available. To create the initial language model is a one-time fee, and then there's some usage fees along the way. But we really focused in on trying to make it affordable, because you go in and you're like, well, it's going to cost you this. And what we found is that with AI, so there's a lot of application-specific AI products, right? So you've got Copilot, you've got Epicore's got its AI product. And they're application-specific products, so they're grounded in the application, and maybe the data that is yours in that application. And so what we found is that we create a language model that knows who you are and what you do and what business you're in and the information about your business and your terms and your language, and then we start to hook it into some of those application specific, AI bolt-ons. It's far more productive and it's far more accurate. And I mean, I can go to Resolve IQ and I can ask it, who are you and who do you work for? And it'll tell you all about 2W. It'll tell you why 2W is a cool place to work, because it's built and it's grounded in our business. Which gives us a way, and it's segmented off from the world, so you don't have to worry about, there's some real question about some of these publicly available AI tools and where that data goes. And with the way that we've designed this product is it's your data, it stays where you have it and where you've put it, and it doesn't go anywhere else.
What would you say to MSPs that are unsure, that are kind of sitting on the sidelines right now with AI?
Well, here's what I do. First and foremost, I think you got to make the commitment, right? And so learn it internally. Eat your own dog food. That's been our mantra since the beginning, with the Azure piece, with the Microsoft piece, with some of the Microsoft internal stuff, with the Epicore stuff. We eat our own dog food. And I would recommend that that's where you start, is learn on yourself. I mean, we're fortunate we have a dev group, and we've been able to we built this on, look, we let the $1 billion companies do the $1 billion work, and we leverage all that stuff. So we're not reinventing anything that somebody else hasn't, it's all built on Microsoft framework. But it's like anything else. It's whether you want to get into cloud infrastructure, whether you want to start looking at what value AI will bring to you, whether you're looking at an acquisition, maybe you're going to buy the MSP down the road or whatever, you have to commit. You can't put a toe in. You got to commit. You got to say, here's what we're going to do. When we made the commitment to Microsoft, we hired a person who's a former Microsoft employee to do nothing but interface with Microsoft. Wow. And that's her whole job. So her job is to take all that data that Microsoft throws at us and pull out the parts that matter, and then work with Microsoft so they understand what we're doing. And that's, I mean, we have, FTE understands, I mean, who understands 365 licenses? There's like 1,000 365 SKUs.
Mm-hmm.
Business Premium has over 110 pieces of different functionality modules. It's complicated. And that's her job. That's what she does. And the fact that we were able to make, and she does she's terrific at it. And because we were able to make that commitment to ourselves and to our partner in the terms of a really, really talented, really smart FTE, that's what I mean by commitment. I mean, you got to scratch the check. You got to close your eyes and jump off the bridge and be pretty sure that there's water at the bottom. Because that's how you get to where you want to go, I think.
So you were early with Azure, sending those quotes, and you had to learn about it. Your team had to learn about it. 365, now AI. What I found personally about AI is I could spend a little bit of time and know a little, or I could spend all my time and still know a little. So how do you think about that? How do you figure out like how much resources to devote, how big to bet on this, if you think it's a big deal or not a big deal, and just the practical, like how much time do I give
part of
to
it
you?
is, honestly, part of it's what gives me energy, which is and our CTO says this. He goes, the thing about our CEO is he loves all the cool shit. And it's true. And that's what gives me energy. And if we can, so when they bring stuff to me, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Right. And then, but you got to watch it. You got to pay attention to it. You just can't let it run wild. You got to watch it. You got to figure out where the value is. We figured early on that there was such value to the AI process internally that if I never sell one Resolve IQ to a client, it was well worth the development effort. And I think, so some of it is educated gut, we'll call it. Right. It just, the Azure thing just made sense to me, right? The whole, servers, what's Moore's law? Is it Moore's law that everything gets twice as fast every other year or whatever, and half as expensive or whatever?
Yeah.
That the whole thing is the whole server thing is just a losing proposition over time, and it's not a great business model where I can charge our clients a monthly fee. I can keep them up to date, new technology. They have no downtime. I can make it as resilient and as redundant as they need to be. They can access it from their facilities in Costa Rica as well as in Chicago. It just made sense that's where technology is going to go.
I couldn't agree more, but we still have a lot of MSPs doing on-prem every day. So you gotta pick your side, right? You gotta make that bet.
It's tough because I get it. It's hard to let go of the stuff that you know and you understand.
Yeah.
But I think if I were to, so here's what's happening to us because of the stuff with AI, because of the stuff with Microsoft, because of the cloud stuff, we are creating networks that make very little noise. And we are also then creating environments where, because of the AI component of it, so look, you put in a ticket here, there's a chance that Resolve IQ might respond to you and say, hey, try these 3 things while you're waiting for your call back. Because we're starting to get feedback that says, oh, you know what, I did one of those 3 things and it works. Thanks for checking in. I think that part of our business is slowly going to become, that whole break fix part of our MSP business is going to become less and less and less. And our clients are going to start to look to us for guidance and leadership as to what comes next and what should I use this. Look, there's a lot of confusion in technology right now. Nobody knows. They don't know where to go, right? Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this other thing over here? I Googled security, and Googling security is like going to WebMD and Googling headache. It's either you need a nap and an aspirin or you'll be dead in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And and I think that guidance and that consulting will become more and more important to our clients than the old-fashioned, my computer doesn't work. I've got a virus. I'm going to run out. I'm going to, put up my Superman cape and swoop in and be the hero. I don't. I see that becoming less and less.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the consulting part of this, the guidance part of this, becoming more and more. And I truly believe, and I say this more than pretty frequently, I think the future of our technology and of our business, our MSP business, is going to end up being the interconnectivity of everything to everything else.
Mm.
And, with, cloud, like I run my entire business off my iPad. And when I need to access a Windows machine, I open up a cloud PC.
Yeah.
And it's all right there. And so it's, and that human interface device being, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's whatever you prefer it to be. Like, like the kids, I am old, so I talk like I'm old. But the kids, they prefer screens that are about this big,
Yeah.
right? I like screens that are maybe that big, right?
Yeah.
I think that part of our business, the whole traditional break fix, level 1, level 2 piece is eventually going to become, there's always going to be people who can't make their printers work, and there's always going to be people who forget their passwords.
Sure.
But I think the other part of that is going to start to become more and more not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to, I think as an industry, I think we need to gear up for that.
Mm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's some great advice. What's the one book you would recommend that's helped you the most, Mark?
I tell you, it's funny you ask it, because I just recommended this to some people. It's an old book. It's been around forever. It's called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. And it's how people adopt technology. And so with the AI piece, it's, we're looking for innovators. We're not looking for laggards, right? We're looking for the innovators. We're looking for the visionaries, and then we need to put the effort in to get it into the early majority. Azure was the same way, right? Those folks that are willing to to take the leap, to walk away from traditional on-prem iron. It's important that we understand who we're talking to and that we can identify who those people are. And so I found myself kind of leaning into that a little bit more. And then I have it's on my shelf in my office, and I literally walked it up to our social media and communications person, and I said, "Here, you need to read this."
Mm.
So I guess that would be it.
Yeah, it's a great book. I think too often we forget, especially when we are the guys that like to play with the new tech, that is not most of the world, and certainly not most of our client base. They're not the innovators.
You're exactly right, because we're innovators, right? Or we're visionaries.
Mm-hmm.
And in my world, most of my clients are late majority or laggards.
Yeah. I would imagine
so we have to understand that, right?
Yeah, you're not even dealing with early majority.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. You've got to have proof sources and references, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, super interesting business that you built where you can be developing your own AI, right? If somebody would have said there's this really innovative MSP that's all in on Azure and in the cloud and was early to that and developed their own AI application already that they can sell. But there's this MSP that serves like the manufacturing market. I would have said those are not the same. Those are not the same entities.
12 years ago, if you would have said that to me, 8 years ago, you would have said to me, I'd been like, "What? That's no way."
That is an amazing accomplishment. Mark, how could people find you online?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, Mark Jamieson, 2W Tech. LinkedIn's a good way to do it. 2wtech.com is our website. I have a link tree, I think, is on my LinkedIn profile. Again, I take no credit for any of that. That's all our social media people. I'm just sort of along for the ride and a lot of that stuff. but that's usually a good place to check me out and to find me.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really fun interview and a tremendous gift. Thank you for being on MSP Mindset.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun.